What's up, YouTube? Do you guys like my new camera I just got for my birthday? Anyhow, today we are going to be talking about two YouTubers. They are currently the number one and number two most subscribed YouTubers of all time, Smosh and Pewdiepie. And we're going to be talking about the sort of fundraisers that they sort of started that are very, very similar in certain ways and very different in other ways. And so here's the premise. So they're the most subscribed of all time. During the moment when they started their fundraisers, PewDiePie was behind Smosh. PewDiePie had less subscribers by about like 1 million or 2 million. And he started this fundraiser because he had hit 10 million subscribers. And he decided to use that and go towards charity. So he created a fundraiser where he set a goal of $250,000, and basically they went and they tried to reach this goal by a certain deadline. Today is the actual deadline of the charity, and he is short about $10,000. It's the last day of his fundraiser. He's at $237,000-ish, which is still a lot. I applaud him greatly for all his efforts. A lot of it's still a hefty amount, and it's all going to charity, and it's going to be towards clean water for people who need it in Africa, and that's my understanding of it. And he's going to fall short, but it's a great deal. On the other hand, we have Smosh, who is a duo of two. They make sketch comedies on YouTube, and at the time when the fundraiser started, both fundraisers started at roughly the same time a few months ago. Smosh was ahead of PewDiePie. Now, PewDiePie, as of today, September 2013, PewDiePie has overtaken Smosh with 12.5 million subscribers, whereas Smosh now has around 12 million subscribers. But at the time of the charity fundraiser, Smosh was ahead. So Smosh, at roughly the same time, made a fundraiser, and they set the same goal of $250,000. And here's where the backlash from a small group of people on YouTube, I wouldn't say that small, I mean a lot of people on YouTube. Here's what Smosh did. They made a fundraiser also for $250,000, but all of it was supposed to go to development of an iPhone application game revolving around the characters Ian and Anthony from Smosh. And the biggest part about this was that as of today, they've raised all of the money for that fundraiser, and at the same time, it's very, very sketchy because apparently, at least from my understanding, it only takes at most $5,000 to $10,000 to develop a high quality application for this game. And so if that is the basis, like even if this game was some like optimal game, apparently it should only like at the most take like $50,000. But the general, sort of cost to developing a quality iPhone application apparently is $5,000 to $10,000 according to iPhone application developers. And so it's very sketchy, and so that's why there's this sort of backlash. People are sort of angry that you got these two YouTubers, and then one's putting all of his audience and using it for charity, whereas the other is sort of money grubbing and trying to make more money. And certain people are even more mad in the fact that both of these users are already making a whole ton of money, and Smosh especially, apparently they're making hundreds of thousands of dollars from ad revenue from their videos and their 12 million subscribers, and now they're here trying to set fundraisers to make more money. And there's apparently a lot of videos on YouTube where people are complaining about this, and there's hundreds of thousands of views on these videos, and they're saying how bad it is. And personally, here's my opinion on the matter. Just because the goals for the fundraisers are the same, and that they're both fundraisers, it doesn't really mean that Smosh is a bad person or a bad company or a bad group. They set this goal, they met it. They had the audience to meet this goal. And personally, I do believe, I think it would be better and more beneficial. And it's just human nature to think you should spend all this money towards charity rather than for yourself. But for me, the point is that they had the audience complied, and they made a goal and they achieved it. And no no sort of disrespect to PewDiePie for not meeting his goal. I don't think he can make 10,000 more in the next day, but Smosh had the audience and Smosh did it, and that's just how I feel. And I do feel that Smosh in itself, they will, apparently this is what they said in their fundraiser, as a small footnote, and this outraged a lot more people. Apparently they mentioned that a small percentage will go to charity in their fundraiser, whereas the thing is, in their actual campaign video for this iPhone application, nothing on charity was mentioned, and at the same time, like nothing, like it was very clear that they had no intentions of charity being the forefront of their campaign. And I think, at first I was outraged, and I was along everyone else's sort of idea, oh, this is so outrageous. But then I thought about it, and I'm like, if we didn't have these two people doing almost the same thing at the same time, there'd be no comparison for this. And if we just looked at Smosh without, seeing PewDiePie there, it would just be a company or an organization who is trying to develop new products and having the audience to back them up, and they have now achieved this. And I do think you're not like obligated to spend money or give money to charity, and if you don't, you're a bad person. And so the truth of the matter is, it's actually very hard to make it on YouTube. It's very hard to make money in the economy, and for the fact that they had the audience, and the fact that they made their goal of $250,000, then there should be no complaints, quite honestly. Now back to PewDiePie. I do think he's doing something great, and I really think it's an awesome thing, but it does show a little bit about how people are wired. And again, there is some variance with this conclusion, because there is a lot of sort of change on the amount of subscribers and the amount of audience that both users had. PewDiePie had 10 million and a lot less than Smosh when the fundraiser started. Now PewDiePie has overtaken Smosh, and so one could argue that there was less of an audience at the time, which is the only reason why PewDiePie couldn't achieve his goal of 250,000. Now again, there's still one day left in his fundraiser. Maybe he will achieve it, maybe he'll extend the deadline, we don't know. But on the flip side, it could just be that people prefer spending money on stuff that end up giving them potential enjoyment, at least superficially, in the long run, rather than benefiting others or strangers. And at first I didn't really agree with this, but then I thought about it, and then I looked at, remember those like infomercials on charities that you see on TV? You don't really want to spend money on that, but then when you see like a toy commercial or a video game commercial, you're like, yeah, I want to spend money on that. And so it does kind of make sense. It's kind of sad, but it is how it is. And I do think there's good charities out there. There are people suffering that we should feel sympathetic about and help bring to a better cause. But at the same time, I do feel certain charities are sort of one-dimensional and quite selfish in certain ways. Like, I do feel that there are organizations out there who are pretty much soaking in money from people willing to donate, but not really willing to research into the organization. And then they take all this money from donations and they either give it to the employees who spend it selfishly on their own stuff, or and again, this is the major thing for me. What it's going to isn't really that great a cause. Maybe it's simply just providing food for a developing country, which at the end of the day is doing nothing but helping to fuel a nation or government that is corrupt and not really going to benefit us as the United States, and pretty much just it's constantly fueling this corrupt nation. And I don't know too much about charity, and I feel like this may or may not be true in certain ones, but you just have to do your research. And I'm not saying PewDiePie's organization is something like that. I do feel it is potentially something of use, but you really gotta research your charities before sort of blindly donating, at the very least. And at the other side of it, it's like sometimes certain charities, you pretty much donating money to feed starving children, and what's going to happen from here is these children are going to grow up and they're going to sort of rip apart all the natural resources in the environment because they were able to survive and exploit nature, and then pretty much we're going to slowly run out of natural resources, and the earth is going to be a barren place filled with an overpopulation of humans, and then most other natural species are wiped out because we have pretty much killed, captured, feathered, or eaten them. And I don't know, that might be a very naive, simple picture of charity, but you know, these are worries that I do have, and certain things that I have to look to before I decide to invest in a charity. And so what I'm saying here is not that PewDiePie is wrong or Smosh is right. I think both have their own sort of agenda going, and who's to say that Smosh's is worse just because they chose not to use their money towards charity. And this is kind of going against the grain because there's already a lot of videos with hundreds of thousands of views on the other side of the spectrum where they are giving the very expected sort of reaction with where they're trashing Smosh and glorifying PewDiePie. And it truly is like up to the user. And for me, if you know who I am, I'm more of a charity guy. I'm more of a sympathetic guy. But at the same time, I do have a lot of background in science, and I really think of things objectively, and there truly isn't anything that wrong with either one. And at the end of the day, Smosh has declared that a percentage, an unknown percentage, probably like less than 1%, who knows, but an unknown percentage is going to charity. And at the end of the day, the viewer, you who are watching this video, like, you probably haven't done as much to charity as Smosh has done. Regardless of the fact that they're only giving 1%, that could still be like $2,000, $3,000. And compared to the average viewer who's sitting there at the end of their computer typing in the comments that it's a terrible thing, like, you probably haven't donated a cent to charity. So at the end of the day, Smosh has done more than you. So really, who's to blame here but you? I mean, unless you've donated more than Smosh has to charity, at the end of the day, both of these users have contributed more to charity than you. And so I don't really see a problem here. And even if you did donate more, let's say you for some reason are rich and you donated $10,000 to charity, which I doubt whoever's watching has done, at the end of the day, the point is you can do whatever you want with your life, and these guys are doing more than the average YouTube viewer out there who probably hasn't donated a cent to charity. And the average YouTube viewer out there is oblivious of this fact, and they're constantly complaining, and they'll dislike potentially this video. And yeah, so personally, that's my opinion on the fact. I have donated like probably in total like 50, maybe less, $30 to charity in my entire life from various little, snippet donations. So at the end of the day, that's just my opinion on the matter. Smosh is a sort of business, and they want to release a new product, so let them release it. Their audience is willing to pay for this product, so what's the deal of complaining about it? And at the same time, for me at least, Smosh has done more to charity, most likely, than I have done myself. So no complaints to Smosh or PewDiePie. I hope they keep going. I do hope that Smosh does eventually, in the long run, maybe like Bill Gates at the end of his life, or Warren Buffett, turns a lot of their money towards charity. I mean, they're still very young people. I mean, they're in their early 20s, so they have a lot of time. I mean, Bill Gates didn't really turn to charity until he was at the end of his employment with Microsoft, the company. So you never know where these things will turn, and at the same time, you really gotta watch out what sort of charities you are donating to, because if you're just helping starving children, I mean, the human species, quite frankly, in certain areas are pretty much like parasites. They go to the land and they just destroy everything. They use everything. They cut down the trees. They eat the food there, and then they just suck up the land until it's bare and dry, and then they migrate further on. So quite frankly, you are sympathetic to the human race, but in terms of nature as a whole, you are really just promoting the death of other species, and inevitably the potential death of your own species, by sort of helping it out. And again, this is probably a very simpleton view of this, and I do feel like a lot of charities may have addressed this issue, but a lot may have not. And so what's the scam here? And that's another interesting point I do have to address. Certain people have sort of called out Smosh's fundraiser for being a complete scam, and the reason is, again, because apparently it only costs at most, with addition to graphic design and artistry and all this stuff, at most apparently $5,000 to $10,000 to create a iPhone application that's of high quality, and then they're asking for $250,000, which they apparently raised. So again, first off, it's like, who's to blame? Should there be anyone to blame because they did in fact reach it? No big deal. The audience was willing to cough up the cash, but at the same time, it's like, it's kind of sketchy where the majority of this money is really going. But I mean, you're not the one spending this money, so who's really to blame here? And so we have here Smosh, and I really think it could potentially be a sort of scam, but we don't know. And I'm not saying PewDiePie's thing is a scam. I do think at the end of the day, his organization, which is apparently called Charity Water, it has sort of thought through these sort of dilemmas, most likely. And I think the general premise for these sort of organizations, to counteract the argument I just made, was the fact that by sort of helping these children survive, it spurs a change in the culture, so that the parents don't sort of mate so often and produce so many children, thereby decreasing the amount of children each family makes, which will, in the long run, create a sort of lessening of the population rather than an overpopulation. And it's very interesting stuff. If you want to get into it yourself, just let me know, or just research it yourself. But that's all I have to say about this video. I hope you guys liked what I said. I hope you guys understood it. I know there's a lot of stuff in there that probably was very controversial, and again, I may be wrong when I touched on those things. So again, I don't know too much about charity, so disregard that. But my overall point is the fact that Smosh and PewDiePie have probably done more than you. So that's all I have to say about this video, and I hope you guys like it. So as always, like, favorite, comment, and subscribe, and take it easy on me. This was all done in one take. So I'll see you guys later. Peace.